I don't think any companies today looking at GC as that risk manager. We have gone past that stage many, many years ago. Take a call that whether I wanted to be in a B-grade medical school or I would like to explore something else. And that's where I think I chose the unconventional path of choosing something else. What I call as diving into the deep sea without really having a full-scape picture. And that has been kind of true for my entire journey.
How did you bridge this gap where all the problems were coming at you at the fag end versus now where you are part of those discussions since the inception itself?
I call sometimes our function as a clean brigade as well. I don't play that blame game at that point in time. That point in time is reserved for a very constructive approach of partnering with the relevant stakeholders and figuring out a solution, how to navigate that crisis.
I spoke to more than 100 plus general counsels from the tech companies. One of the concerns they raised was, even if I'm filing a patent today, my product is getting into the market and getting obsolete in next 12 months, but the patent is getting approved after 2.5 years or 3 years. What do I do after that? Tanhieya, thank you so much for joining the show. Good to have you here. And I would like to start by asking you one simple question, right? Which would be around, what has been your journey so far? I'm sure when you started growing up, you never envisioned yourself to be a general counsel at a tech company, but now here you are. So just walk us through your journey in maybe 3-4 different parts. One could be your early childhood days, 1 to 15 years, then 15 to 25, because that's a very crucial year. That's where actually everything gets decided, and that's when we take bold decisions and bold bets. And then 25 and beyond. If you can explain us how you were in these 3 crucial phases, what made you who you are today, I think that would set up the very good opening for the show.
So thank you, Prayank, and thank you for inviting me on this podcast and allowing me this opportunity to share my journey. So, as you rightly said, I don't think I really ever dreamt of being a general counsel. I call myself an accidental lawyer for the very simple reason that I was gearing up on my childhood dream when I didn't even had senses was about becoming a doctor.
Okay.
And that's what I prepared for. I was a good student, doing well, and like any typical Indian middle class family, if you are a good student, you can choose between either medicine or engineering. And so I thought, that is what is going to be my journey. So, and then I kind of hit my first major life, I would say, pivotal moment, wherein I had to take a call that whether I wanted to be in a B-grade medical school or I would like to explore something else. And that's where I think I chose the unconventional path of choosing something else, what I call as diving into the deep sea without really having a full-scape picture. And that has been kind of true for my entire journey. As I'll probably share that things have never been, I have always believed that you can only plan so much of your life, and a lot is about what kind of opportunities knock on your door. So you don't really plan it. There is a way, you call it nature, you call it the outer ecosystem that kind of builds on your story. So I started out as a chartered accountant. In fact, my first job was as a chartered accountant. And then I switched gears because as part of my chartered accountancy, there was a kind of a module or a subject on corporate laws. And that was my first initiation into law. Started really enjoying that subject, and so wanted to kind of augment it. And that kind of led me to be a lawyer, to be a charter uh, company secretary, for the very simple reason that I think this space was looking interesting to me. And I think I was very much intrigued by the fact that how business operates within um, regulatory and societal frameworks, um, the fact that your real life decisions are not really black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Those are gray. Those are done under ambiguity, under time pressure. And so, how do you kind of work that piece out? That was also probably one of the reasons why I chose to become an in house counsel. Because rather than advising on something, I found it very attractive was the fact that as an in house counsel, you can shape the decision. As an in-house counsel, you have a much better vantage point, in the sense you have an overall view of the business, not just one product segment or not just one geography. You see how the interaction between rakes, the strategy, operations kind of intertwine, um, and the fact that we get involved in a lot of things. So we may be one day working on how to enter a new market, or tomorrow how about launching a new product or getting into a new strategic collaboration. So as an in-house counsel, you kind of tend to be a jack of all trades,
Yeah.
and you kind of get pulled in different kind of things, and that adds to the complexity of the role, but also
Mm-hmm.
adds probably to the fun and the learning curve. So being able to kind of go through that, and being able to kind of influence outcomes with, in a way, uh, go beyond the legal questions itself. So it's much larger, much bigger, enabling growth. And so I think that has been the most, I would say, the rewarding part of the journey. The fact that you are working for a bigger piece, and you have an ability to shape an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'll probably share as my journey so far. I think the way even the function has kind of evolved over the course of the years, and this whole interaction of law, strategy, and leadership, I think that continues to kind of inspire me.
Mm. Interesting. But what was that pivotal moment which made you decide that, okay, I am already a CA, but now law is my calling. So let me move the gears and let me get into some different zone altogether.
Okay, so I don't really want to undermine one profession over the other, but I think during the period that I was studying,
Mm-hmm.
and even in my initial years, um, I realized that there is a fun in one sense with numbers, but
Mm-hmm.
that was not my calling. I enjoyed much more navigating gray zones, coming out or breaking down complex things into much simpler, actionable items for the
Mm-hmm.
business colleagues to work on. I think that was probably more interesting to me, and I thought that is my calling. That is what I would like to do. Maybe simplify things for others so that they can grasp the issue and kind of make their choices.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Interesting. So you mentioned about decision making, and when all the decisions are being made, looking at the gray picture, because there's no black and white. Almost every time you're taking a decision, it's the gray story, and then you back your decision with a certain story which you are telling to the world and to yourself. So, as an in-house counsel, what does it take to take a decision which is against everyone else, but it's right for the business, and you are backing it up?
Okay, so probably I'd kind of break it up into two parts.
Mm-hmm.
One is, I think, let's look at what makes an in-house counsel effective. And that will be kind of a segue into your question is how do you back it up? First and foremost is, I think, what is that major departure from while you work within a law firm is you are no longer the legal advisor
Mm-hmm.
to the company. Although you bring a certain subject matter expertise to the whole conversation, but I think increasingly, if you have to create a value for yourself, if you have to have a seat at the table, you need to understand the business.
Mm-hmm.
You need to understand how does the business operate, what is the context, you know, how value is created, and also you should be able to really understand is where does the inherent risk lie. I think that, together with the fact that our function, as I shared with you, we have a unique advantage point.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot really work in isolation. We have to really closely collaborate with multiple functions like finance, sales, HR, marketing, R&D, operations, depending on what you are kind of looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to align with them to, create something which makes sense for the organization, which helps to drive the organizational goals. So these two facts, which is creating that network or a relationship or building that trust and the rapport, is a big thing. And together with understanding business, our solutions have to be commercially grounded.
Mm-hmm.
Then only we succeed as a in-house lawyer, and that's where I think we make the most value addition, and that's when actually our colleague starts appreciating us and
Mm-hmm.
engaging with us early. So now coming to your point, how do you do that? So I always say this to young lawyers is, develop a good understanding of the business, create these collaboration, create these rapport. But I think I also always kind of tell them is you have to be a lawyer with a spine.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have that courage to speak the truth. You have to have that courage to stand up in a room where you are probably the dissenting voice,
Yeah.
because that's how the best business leaders and the best CEOs will start to value your contribution. We are not yes men. We
Mm-hmm.
have to find solutions. We cannot be the naysayers as well. So we kind of have this tight rope walk to kind of do that, where to draw the line, where to bring in that distinction that, the whole room may be very, very enthusiastic about doing a product launch or entering a new market, but you need to kind of bring in that soberness to say, hello, let's pause and let's look at these things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not easy. You develop it along the way. You learn from your interactions. You kind of grow in your journey. But I think that's very paramount. Is you have to be a lawyer with a spine, and you have to have the courage to speak the truth. And most business leaders I have seen along the way, good business leaders will appreciate that because it helps them to pressure test ideas, it helps them to preempt things, and it after all leads to a more sound decision as an organization, and it also leads to sustainable growth.
Mm, very interesting. So what you're saying is you have to be courageous enough to take that bold call, be and not just be the yes sayer always. If the answer to that question is a no, stand for it, irrespective of what others are thinking, because you
I
are
would
going.
probably, I would probably say is it's not about a yes or a no. It's about taking that whole team into that journey, helping them map the riskscape well so that they are in a good space to make a sound decision.
mm,
Because as a lawyer, it is also imperative is not to say no and explore all possibilities,
mhm,
right? We also bring value by that. If not this,
mhm,
how we can do differently,
yeah.
right? So and that's where the point happens is how to engage early in the design process itself,
Mhm,
so that you are getting involved while the idea is still being formulated, where things are still fluid to make adjustment and changes, and not really something coming at the kind of the fag end of the whole thing,
mm,
where things have been crystallized, perhaps things may already be committed or pre-committed, and and then you are looking at, oh, what can we do? So
mhm,
I think engaging early, bringing in that discipline,
mhm,
and it is always a two-way process for sure, but bringing in that discipline, bringing in that value, because the more we contribute, the business start engaging us early.
mm,
The more we are naysayers, business will probably like to stay away from us. So bridging that gap, to ensure that we are still looped in at the design stage.
mm. Very good. But I'm sure in your career, you would have seen this. I mean, getting the early seat during the initial discussion is like a privilege. Not every counsel would have received that from the get go or from the day they have joined the in house world itself, right? There would have been many instances where you would have been thrown at a problem at much later stage, or maybe even after escalations, where you have to now do the firefighting. But how did you bridge this gap where all the problems were coming at you at the fag end versus now where you are part of those discussion at since the inception itself? How did you manage this entire journey, and how are you coming at to this particular point? I would love to know
Okay,
your
so
process.
I call sometimes our function as a clean brigade as well,
Okay.
right? As you rightly said, sometimes you are called in at the fag of the thing when things have either already exploded or they are about to explode, and the business thing, oh, let's loop in legal,
Yeah.
right? It still happens for sure.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, I think the approach that has kind of worked for me
Hmm.
and has helped me to kind of navigate such situations is one, I don't play the blame game at that point ever.
Okay.
I
Even
don't really
the
question
situation is
them.
coming at the fag end.
Exactly. When suppose, either things have exploded or things
Mm,
are about to explode, and you are like being looped in at the nth hour at 11 p.m. Somebody gives you a call, is I think I need to say something or share
mhm,
something with you. Right? I don't play that blame game at that point in time. That point in time is reserved for a very constructive approach of partnering with the relevant stakeholders and figuring out a solution, how to navigate that crisis.
mm,
But once the crisis is gone and has been taken care of and contained, then I do make it a point to have that conversation. Is how this could have been done very differently.
mm,
you know the fact that a lot of sweat, a lot of anxiety that was there while we were navigating that crisis could have been avoided. If there are any fallouts of that crisis,
mhm,
how that could have been contained, if probably at the design stage we could have done something differently. So now I'm not blaming the stakeholder. All I'm trying to bring to their attention is there is a better way of doing things
mm,
without any accusatory remarks, without any complaints. That has always helped me, because the next time that business
mm,
or that business leader is thinking of something, they think, okay, let's engage with her. She
mm.
might have a perspective that I would like to hear.
Okay.
He might tell us a better way of doing things. I don't want to go through that crisis again, right?
Mm,
So it is a mix of, what I say is helping the colleague. At the end of the day, we are one team. So
mm,
helping the colleague navigate the immediate crisis, but then having a very healthy chat with them to say, we could have done things much better in
Mm-hmm.
a much nicer way without really going through the associated anxiety and everything else. And
Mm-hmm.
that has worked for me
Okay.
on most occasions.
Interesting. Now, Tanya, I would love to know your take on how these innovation with AI and automation is progressing. Have you changed the way you are hiring these days? And what are the specific skills which you are looking at when you are hiring new lawyers into your team?
So, I think, we have really crossed that bridge where we can say whether we should be adopting AI or not,
Hmm.
frankly speaking, as
Yeah.
a function. I I I strongly believe that we are way past that line. We are adopting. In fact, in our organization, we have really adopted AI because it is now at the center of transformation. It is about efficiency of scale.
Hmm.
It is bringing in a lot of benefits to the legal and compliance function. Whether you talk about CLM, whether you talk about legal research, whether it is just simply, freeing up the bandwidth of my team in terms of automating certain routine tasks. A big help on the compliance side of things, monitoring, having easy trend analysis, having some real time flags, right, which
Yeah.
probably was not um, possible earlier,
Hmm.
is now available to you through a tool and all. So I think embracing it, I don't think
Hmm.
there's a choice left.
Yeah.
The legal function of tomorrow has to embrace it. But I always say this is embrace it, but with a certain discernment.
Okay.
You know, you still need to have that human thing uh, alive, and that judgment and the ability to navigate, because AI tools are good, but when it comes to factoring in judgment or context or um, I would say relative positioning,
Mm.
navigating in ambiguity, all those things are not able to be done by AI. So,
Mm.
where to use AI? I always say this, it's like a good companion to have,
Okay.
right? But you cannot allow AI to lead you.
Mm.
So, that's how I kind of position. If you ask me about hiring, uh, I think, yes, clearly people have to be much more digitally fluent.
Okay.
Just because of the sheer pace with which AI is getting into our function, the way we are using it, you have to kind of have that knack of the ability to, how should I say, tinker with new things, even if I don't know. So I don't think when we started using these AI tools, we really knew. Uh,
Yeah.
we have all worked together with prompts. We have seen certain things working, certain things not working, iterating, reiterating, learning from each other. I think all that becomes very, very important and critical.
Hmm.
So those things are important. Definitely, technology is going to play a big role, not just within internal function, but even in the larger scheme of things.
Hmm.
The business is changing differently. Uh, the world is changing differently, the way the regulatory landscape, the way the geopolitical things. I think we are increasingly in a world which is very uh, volatile, and it's like ever evolving, and like everything is interconnected, like one thing leads to another and leads to another, and all of a sudden, even though you might, your first impression may be, oh, I seem to be distant and not really affected, and then something hits you, no, my supply chain is impacted, one of my raw materials impacted, and things like that. So what I look for is um, intellectual agility.
Hmm.
Are you able to shift gears, because things may be evolving by the day, by the hour? Ability to really kind of keep calm under pressure, and then keep on exploring things, uh, so that you can give some really clear choices or guidance to your uh, clients. I think that's another thing that I look at, and definitely I think all the old things still works. Um,
Okay.
the right attitude, uh, being able to kind of having that curiosity
Mm-hmm.
to explore new things, to enter into domains where you may not know the full answers, but are you willing to kind of grow beyond your comfort zone and explore that, knowing fully well that you might also fail. You
Mm-hmm.
know, those things are what attracts me when, or
Okay.
I keep in mind while I'm hiding someone in my team.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Interesting. So with all these innovations happening around, do you have like a wish list of things which should have been part of a legal domain or in your legal function, like an in-house, like wishful features, wishful tools, which could have made your job far, far easier? If I were to ask you to list down those kind of features or tools or functionalities, what would those be, which are still not there?
So the first thing that I kind of see, and I may not have the full scope of all the tools that are available in the world,
Mm-hmm.
but I do see the fact that although we have some very excellent tools in terms of automating our contract life cycle management processes and all, I did do still see a gap when it comes to drafting vis-a-vis redlining of contracts. If there's a contract available, I think the tool does a very good job in terms of telling you, what
Mm-hmm.
can be different. But when you ask them to draft something, I do still see that there is an element of improvement there.
Mm-hmm.
Legal research is a big area.
Okay.
Um, I we are like even now currently using certain tools that do legal research, but I think the problem with some of these tools are these are either heavily US and EU dependent,
Mm-hmm.
or they don't really keep pace with the changes in law that happens in Asia, which is basically my domain, which is India and Southeast Asia. So that's where again, if you ask me for wishful thinking, I would definitely like them to improve, and I definitely know that in years to come they would improve for sure, because they are also on their journey to improve the things. So I think those are the things that I would really like to see improving. Again, on the compliance side, I think we have some very wonderful tools that we are using in terms of uh, doing data analytics and monitoring real time, flagging things while the transaction is kind of there. But you know, if you ask me to do visual thinking, it can be done more. Can we probably do
Mm-hmm.
much more preventive, predictive kind of analysis? We have huge setups of third party partners and stuff like that. We would love to kind of have much better insights while we are even engaging someone,
Hmm. While you're engaging someone. Okay. And
right? With in third party thing, risks management. Right now, it's still kind of limited. Yes, you do due diligence, but you will realize due diligence has its own limitations.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
So, if you ask me to do visual thinking, there are still plenty of areas that we can look into.
interesting. And what do you think about the hourly schedules or hourly charges, which typically almost all the law firms uh, put in? Uh,
I think they will have to revisit that model for
mhm,
sure. Um, I think some of them have been pragmatic enough
mhm.
uh, to already embrace that,
Okay.
but I think gone are the days um, that we won't be really talking about billable hours. It will be much more project driven,
Mhm.
outcome driven, and I think that is going to definitely shift.
Okay. Interesting. Very good. And what about IP? What's your view on innovation and protection of the innovation in the tech companies? Since you have been part of almost all the tech companies so far as counsel, what's your
So
viewpoint?
I think the major thing that is happening is with the use of AI. with the extensive use of, the sheer length and breadth of how data is being used
Mm-hmm.
within organizations. Um, the amount of stuff like these autonomous tools that we are using, it
Mm-hmm.
leads to its own challenges in terms of law, right?
Okay.
We are actually even questioning some of the fundamental assumptions of law when we start navigating these situations, and things are not clear.
Mm-hmm.
Let me be very honest. I think we are all kind of trying to understand the
Okay.
pace at which technology is changing, and we are only kind of running behind it. But that's the best you can do.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the liability frameworks used to work, the way the data privacy, the sheer spectrum of how that is evolving. The way, like, I work for a multinational organization, I may be sitting in India talking about some um, Indian data subjects, but that information may be flowing all across the globe.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean? Who is responsible for what? Who has to take the lead? I have so many vendors. I have so many third party partners. How do we map that ecosystem? That ecosystem itself was a big thing for us to look after.
Mm-hmm.
Now add to these complexities. You know, we are now more and more dealing in cross jurisdictional kind of frameworks. What does that mean? How do you kind of safeguard, but at the same time allow business to kind of grow and operate,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think these are, if I may say so, these are very interesting times because we don't have a very clear answer. We are also kind of doing our own hit and trials and seeing to it what makes sense, creating guardrails which we think
Mm-hmm.
are probably making sense, and maybe tomorrow it won't make sense, right? But having that agility to kind of again recalibrate, not really saying anything is set in stone,
Okay.
but recalibrating and just trying to, how should I say, keep pace with the amount of changes. I think one thing that really keeps me awake is the sheer change at which the world is changing. You have to keep pace with that. And IP is essentially a part of that. If I am talking about innovation, if I'm entering new markets, what does it mean?
Yeah.
How do I relate to business that yes, you can, but these are the things that we need to kind of work together to ensure. So without really slowing down their ambition,
Mm-hmm.
creating the guardrails is probably something that's paramount for us.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
That I would say is basically the thing that we are trying to do. It's not really just how should I say, not really just ensuring that compliance should not get wrong, but also that innovation should not get wrong. We can neither be too uh, cautious,
Mm-hmm.
and also we cannot really think it through. So creating that balance, which isn't
Mm-hmm.
easy.
Not a clear picture then. Okay. So so like in last 6 7 months, I spoke to more than 100 plus general counsels from the tech companies. And when I asked them about how are they protecting the innovations which are being created by their team, which has an AI component in it, and patent is something which everybody is going for. But one of the concern they raised was, even if I'm filing a patent today, my product is getting into the market and getting obsolete in next 12 months, but the patent is getting approved after 2.5 years or 3 years. What do I do after that? And so that's their dilemma. Like, I can't skip filing an application, and if it is getting approved after 2.5 years or 3 years, it's actually carrying no worth, no weight. So what do they
So
do?
so I think you raised a very interesting question, and I think we all are facing that challenge that uh, just like we are evolving,
Mm-hmm.
our regulators also need to evolve.
Yeah.
Um, and the pace with which, I'm not saying that, it's not that regulators are not present to this fact. I think they are definitely present to the fact. And I see different regulators at different stages of that journey or evolution where they are also really working hard. Means I have personally, as part of various trade bodies, made representations before um, our sectoral regulators,
Mm-hmm.
saying that I'll give you a very interesting example. We were trying to bring in robotic surgery into India in a big, massive way.
Okay.
And the kind of the licensing regime that we had, and the associated things, some of those things were not really making sense.
Mm-hmm.
Without really telling the regulator that we want this and we want that and all, we said, look, first experience the product.
Mm-hmm.
First understand what is it that we are trying to bring in. What does it do? How does it do it? Probably hear from some of the doctors who have been trained abroad, and what merit they are seeing in these products, so that you understand that the law sometimes is not keeping pace with how technology is evolving,
Yeah.
right? And it
Mm-hmm.
is imperative for you to understand how it is evolving. And like in our case, we have that double jeopardy is, in our case, pharma and medical devices is clubbed under the same sectoral law,
Mm-hmm.
whereas we are like chalk and cheese,
Correct.
right? But we are where we are,
Mm-hmm.
and it brings its own set of frustrations for sure. But we have been working with regulators, and we have worked with some of really the finest people in the room on the other side, who have taken the effort to really understand the things, understand how it is evolving, have sometimes helped us to navigate. At times they have also shared is, you know
Mm-hmm.
there is some amount of lag in how bureaucracy uh, kind of work. So I think, but it has been an incredible journey, especially like for anyone in tech, I think, and most companies do already understand that we cannot ignore our regulators.
Mm-hmm.
We are in highly regulated space. It is best to actually educate them and turn them into a trusted kind of team, part of that same team, so that they understand our challenges. They can also then help us to navigate. At times it works, at times it doesn't, but credibility really improves that way. And credibility then goes a long way in addressing some of the other things.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I think that kind of a chase will always remain. I don't foresee it going anywhere. But yes, and
Mm-hmm.
I hope with all the digital Bharat and the Viksit Bharat and all these programs, I hope these gaps are reduced as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. But do you look at India as that prominent force to reckon with for the next decade or so, where almost all the tech innovation is happening in the country? Like you spoke about robotic surgery, it's still not a norm because there are regulatory challenges, because the IP growth is slow, because the enforcement side of things are very slow in the country. People don't take the laws so seriously in our country. But what needs to happen so that this whole picture gets changed and the whole world looks after us, saying that, this is a good place, they respect IP, they respect the laws, they respect everything, let's go and build innovation in country.
So one thing is IP laws definitely needs an overhauling,
Mm-hmm.
not just in terms of the law, but even the whole administration part of it. Uh, I think we need really, as you rightly said, technology is evolving at a much faster rate. Are we geared up to that kind of pace? If not, then there's a catch 22 situation there. If the IP laws are not well enforced,
Mm-hmm.
global company like ours think twice about launching something,
Yeah.
because they fear, oh, somebody will do
Somebody,
a
yeah, rip it off.
like reverse engineering. And
Correct.
so I think all these things go hand in hand. So it is definitely something I think that the government realizes, and the government is working. I think we can always expect the pace of things to improve, to be much faster and more agile. But I think if we have that kind of a vision, then we need to also have the frameworks in place to get to that vision. Because otherwise, your vision is like a wishful thinking,
Mm,
right? So I would assume and presume that those things should be there. So, revamping of our laws, strict enforcement, even a complete overhauling of the judiciary,
mm-hmm,
right? As you rightly said, if I don't really think that the consequences are going to hit me, if consequences feel really far away, then it prompts certain behaviors.
mm-hmm,
So, creating that framework so that if I see something, if there is an infringement, it should not be something that I have no clue when and how I will be able to kind of bring some sensible remediation to it. If only I can say is, oh, business, these are the kind of options available to us, but nothing is going to give you a 72-hour respite or a week respite, then they think, oh, we have already lost the battle.
mm,
So I think those things definitely I need to improve. And I think what I also would like is, although we are like data privacy finally saw the light of the day,
yeah.
we should not take 10 years. Means in a way, we kind of miss the whole thing,
Mm,
right? Again, there are certain papers on AI. I think good that we are having those conversations. But again, don't take another 10 years,
yeah.
you know? Um, then again, sometimes I think um, the regulators expect you to flag something. I think having a more rigs based approach
Mm-hmm,
is what I would probably like to see. um, treat organizations, allow organizations to self regulate. Um, and then if you really find any gaps and all, as the regulator, you definitely can enforce and takes very strict enforcement action. But some amount of, I would say, breathing space to allow organization to self regulate would really go a long way. To just kind of give an example, the way IT had boomed in our country, a large reason for that was there was little to no um, regulatory intervention.
mm. All right.
I think we need to think on those lines.
Mm. Interesting. It will be a very, very big change if you're able to bring something on those lines. But that's a good thought. That's a good thought. I think it's very important as well.
It's means, as you rightly said, you truly want to kind of be there.
Yeah.
I believe we have the talent,
Mm-hmm.
we have the resources, uh, we can very well be there. But I think we also need to be very, very transparent about some of these bottlenecks. And if we can remove those or mitigate them to some extent, I think we can very much be there.
Awesome. Nice. This is very helpful, Tanya. Thank you so much for sharing this. If I have to ask you, what motivates you every single day, what would that be?
As I told you, I think the biggest motivation as an in-house lawyer is shaping outcomes
Mm-hmm.
that have actually gone beyond the legal questions. Increasingly, I think I see this, and I see this more and more evolving further. Is I don't think any GC, any companies today looking at GC as that risk manager. We have gone past that stage
Mm-hmm.
many, many years ago. It is more about being a strategist. It's more about being a partner in business transformation. So I think we are being looped in early and looped in many things. At
Nice.
times, it creates its own challenges. But I know 2 days are alike, and I love it that way.
Nice. Yes, that's what I wanted to know. And how do you keep yourself sane? Because every day is a surprise. In fact, every hour is a surprise, every minute is a surprise, every phone call which is buzzing is a surprise to you. How do you keep yourself sane?
So one is, I think we are slowly trying to avoid these surprises.
Uh-huh.
A big part of my strategic output is how to reduce these surprises.
Mm-hmm.
How to really change the function from a reactive support to a proactive support. So, referring to my previous comment, engage us early, engage us at the design stage so that we are part of the process rather than being a checker.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is what I increasingly do, and my team does. And I think that's kind of helping us to avoid these surprises. But I think in terms of handling these surprises, I basically look at it as I think we are there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and no matter what, even unintentionally, you sometimes get into situations that snowballs.
Mm-hmm.
So our job is to kind of protect the interest of the organization in such a scenario, and we have to do that. So just kind of remain calm and kind of put your head down and do what is needed to be done. Um, how do I keep sanity? I think a big reason for me keeping sanity is I have a great family to support.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they bring in a lot of equalizer and a space which is very different from work. The other thing is beyond work, you need to pursue something for yourself. It can be anything. For me, it's music and travel,
Nice. Very good.
right? Uh, Something to do which is not at all related to work help me keeps me sanity.
Interesting. Very good. Good to know that. Nice. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts, Tanya. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for giving us your precious time. And I'm sure people who are watching this would be able to learn so much and get to navigate how to tackle every situation in the counsel world, because you have been there for many years, and I'm sure all these wisdom which you shared is profound for anyone to watch this. Thanks again.
Thank you, Prank. And if anything kind of helps anyone, I would feel really blessed.
Awesome. All right.
Thank you for giving the opportunity. It was a pleasure connecting with you and sharing my thoughts.
Excellent.
So
All
thank
right.
you.